Every morning at exactly 6:30, when the sun was still yawning behind the clouds, a little girl named Emma walked down Maple Street with two golden retrievers trotting faithfully beside her. The neighborhood had grown used to the sight of a thin, pale girl in a faded yellow hoodie, clutching two leashes and humming softly as she walked. To most people, it was just an ordinary routine, nothing unusual or worth a second glance. But none of them knew that every step Emma took with those dogs was holding together a story of pain, love, and unimaginable strength. It all began 2 years ago, when Emma's world shattered in a single night. Her father, who had been a firefighter, never returned from a rescue mission. There had been a house fire across town, and though he saved 2 children, he didn't make it out himself. Her mother, broken by grief, slipped quietly into depression, barely speaking, barely eating. At just 11 years old, Emma suddenly found herself trying to hold a family that was falling apart. The only things that didn't change were her father's dogs Max and Daisy. They used to sleep beside his bed, waiting for him to come home. When he didn't, they began to wait by the door every evening, whining softly as if they still believed he would walk through at any moment. At first, Emma avoided the dogs because every wag of their tails reminded her of her dad. But one morning, unable to bear the silence of the house, she picked up the leashes and took them outside. The air was cold, and she didn't know where she was going, only that walking felt better than crying. The dogs walked quietly beside her, as if they, too, understood what it meant to be lonely. That became her morning ritual. She didn't tell anyone, didn't ask for company. Just her, Max, and Daisy walking through streets that still held the echoes of her father's laughter. Neighbors began to notice her. Some would smile politely, others would whisper, "She's such a responsible little girl, walking her dogs every morning." But no one knew that those walks were the only reason her mother ate breakfast. Because every day before leaving, Emma would whisper, "Mom, I'm taking Max and Daisy for a walk. I'll bring you coffee when I get back." And her mother would nod faintly. Slowly, that small routine became their lifeline, the one thing that kept them both moving. One winter morning, as Emma was walking past the park, she saw an older man sitting on a bench, shivering and holding a cardboard sign, "Homeless. Hungry. Please help." She hesitated. She didn't have money, but she did have the sandwich her mother had packed for her. Without thinking twice, she handed it to him. The man smiled weakly and said, "You've got kind eyes, kid. Reminds me of my daughter." That moment stuck with her. The next morning, she brought an extra sandwich. And the next. Soon, the man began waiting for her each morning, waving as she passed. Word spread among the homeless in the area. A little girl with 2 golden dogs brought food every day. Weeks turned into months. Emma's morning walks were no longer just about healing herself, they became about helping others heal too. She began collecting extra bread from a nearby bakery that threw away leftovers. She'd carry a small backpack full of food and give it out quietly, without ever mentioning it to anyone. But one day, her secret was discovered. It was a rainy Tuesday. A journalist named Claire, who lived nearby, noticed Emma handing something to a man under the bridge. Curious, she followed at a distance and saw Emma passing food to several homeless people with a gentle smile. Claire was stunned. This wasn't just a random act of kindness. It was a daily mission carried out by a grieving little girl. The next day, Claire approached Emma and asked if she could write about her. At first, Emma shook her head. "I'm not doing it for attention," she said softly. But after Claire promised that her story could inspire others, Emma agreed. When the article came out, it went viral. The headline read, "Little girl walks her dogs every morning, but what she's really doing will melt your heart." Donations started pouring in. The community rallied together. The bakery began officially providing food for Emma's route, and volunteers joined her to help distribute meals. Even her mother, seeing the impact of her daughter's kindness, began to recover from her depression. She started baking again, making small loaves of bread for Emma to give away. Their house, once heavy with silence, filled again with warmth and laughter. One morning, as Emma walked her dog surrounded by a group of smiling neighbors, she stopped at the old park bench where she'd first met the homeless man. He wasn't there anymore. Someone told her he had found a job and a place to live. On the bench was a note addressed to her, "Thank you for reminding me what hope looks like." Emma held the note to her chest and whispered, "You're welcome." By the time Emma turned 13, she had started a small charity called Max and Daisy's Walks of Hope. Every weekend, people from all over the city joined her and her dogs to deliver food, blankets, and kindness to those in need. Her father's picture hung in the hallway with a caption she wrote herself, "He saved lives. I just try to do the same one step at a time." Years later, when Emma looked back, she realized that what began as a way to survive her pain had become something far bigger, a chain of compassion that kept growing. The world had once seen her as just a little girl walking her dogs. But those who knew her story understood the truth: she wasn't just walking them, she was walking toward hope, for herself, for her mother, and for everyone she met along the way. Message: sometimes, the smallest acts of love come from the deepest pain. You never know what someone is carrying or how far a little kindness can go. Would you like me to adapt this story into a YouTube video script version next, with scene descriptions, narration cues, and emotional pacing for a 15-minute video? It would sound cinematic and ready for voiceover.